With Disneyland set to celebrate its 70th anniversary this year, we will be going over the history of Disneyland, a decade at a time, seeing what attractions and restaurants opened and which ones closed. So, this is the complete history of Disneyland. On July 17, 1955, Disneyland opened in Anaheim, California, opening with Main Street USA, Frontierland, Tomorrowland, Fantasyland, and Adventureland. Opening day did not go entirely to plan, as a plumber's strike caused the water fountains to not work. High temperatures meant the asphalt laid the day before was soft and ladies' heels were getting stuck in it, and counterfeit tickets meant the park was overcrowded. Despite the first day being dubbed Black Sunday, Disneyland would grow in popularity and remain open 70 years later. At the end of the year, on December 25th, Disneyland would add its first new attraction, the Mike Fink Keelboats. Outside the park on October 5th, 1955, the Disneyland Hotel officially opened, although it was owned by Jack Raffer rather than the Disney Company. 1956 with the addition of more attractions in Disneyland, starting with the Astrojets on April 2nd. Two big additions were added in June when Tom Sawyer Island opened on June 16th, and the Skyway between Fantasyland and Tomorrowland opened on June 23rd. Finally in July, the Mine Train through Nature's Wonderland opened on July 2nd, and the Indian War Canoes, later renamed the Davy Crockett Canoes, opened on July 4th. In April 1957, the Sleeping Beauty Castle walkthrough opened in Disneyland, using empty space within the castle previously occupied by stray cats. In June, the Motorboat Cruise opened in Fantasyland on the border to Tomorrowland. Additionally, both the Monsanto House of the Future and the Viewliner Train of Tomorrow opened in June in Tomorrowland. Also in June, Disneyland's first expansion, Holidayland, opened, a large grassy picnic area with separate admission gate, sack races, slides, and merry-go-rounds. 1958 saw the addition of a Grand Canyon diorama to the Disneyland Railroad on March 31st, 1958. A new Fantasyland dark ride opened on June 14th, built on the roof of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, called Alice in Wonderland. The following month, the sailing ship Columbia opened in Frontierland, adding another boat to the rivers of America. Finally in Tomorrowland, the short-lived Viewliner Train of Tomorrow closed to make way for the monorail. 1959 saw the first substantial expansion to Disneyland on June 14th, when the Submarine Voyage and Lagoon opened in Tomorrowland. The same day, the Disneyland monorail system opened, although it was just a loop around Tomorrowland at the time. To complete the expansion, on June 14th, the Matterhorn bobsleds opened opposite the new lagoon, Disneyland's first roller coaster, and it was the first tubular steel roller coaster in the world. On 13th of September, the Rainbow Mountain stagecoaches closed as they were prone to tipping over. Not a ton happened at Disneyland in 1960, other than the opening of the sun-kissed Citrus House on Main Street USA. In 1961, the monorail line was extended to add a stop at the Disneyland Hotel. On August 6, 1961, the Flying Saucers opened in Tomorrowland, acting as hovercraft bumper cars. Due to its lack of shade, lack of nighttime lighting, and lack of Disney theming, Holidayland closed in September 1961. In 1962, Aunt Jemima's Pancake House was renamed Aunt Jemima's Kitchen in Frontierland. In June, the Adventureland Cantina became Sunkissed, I presume. Across the way, the Tahitian Terrace opened in June, featuring a Polynesian-inspired show. Staying in Adventureland, the Swiss Family Treehouse opened on November 18th, 1962. In 1963, Disney made its first advancements in audio animatronic technology, after Walt Disney brought home a mechanical bird from a visit to New Orleans. The result was Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room, which opened on June 13, 1963. In the neighbouring Frontierland, the facade of a haunted mansion was constructed, although plans for what was going inside of it were still not set in stone. As Disney debuted new attractions at the 1964 New York World Fair, very little was added to Disneyland in 1964. The Jungle Cruise received an update thanks to Imagineer Mark Davis to make it more humorous, including the addition of the Trap Safari scene and the African vet. On August 7th, the Astrojets would close in Tomorrowland. 1965 would mark Disneyland's 10th anniversary with new additions on Main Street, USA on July 18th. The land added Plaza Inn restaurant, and Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln opened following its tenure at the World's Fair. An anniversary special was also recorded, teasing the addition of New Orleans Square, Pirates of the Caribbean, and Haunted Mansion. 1966 saw several significant changes for Disneyland. On May 28th, It's a Small World opened in Fantasyland after its success at the World's Fair. Similarly, the primeval world diorama from the Magic Ford Skyway was added to the Disneyland Railroad on July 1st. On July 24th, New Orleans Square officially opened, although no attractions opened with the land. In August, to make way for New Tomorrowland, several Tomorrowland attractions closed, including the Flying Saucers and the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea exhibit. Unfortunately, on December 15, 1966, Walt Disney passed away. After Walt's passing, several projects that were already under construction were completed. On March 18th, Pirates of the Caribbean opened in New Orleans Square, a boat ride taking guests back to the Age of Pirates. Over in Tomorrowland, New Tomorrowland opened in July with a Carousel of Progress, the People Mover, the Rocket Jets, and Tomorrowland Terrace. A month later, Adventure Through Inner Space opened in Tomorrowland, a dark ride where guests are shrunk to the size of a molecule. As a result of New Tomorrowland, the House of Tomorrow had been knocked down and replaced by Alpine Gardens, a quiet picnic spot. Nothing happened in Disneyland from 1967 until 1969, when the Chicken of the Sea became Captain Hook's galley. On August 9th, 1969, 6 years after the facade was completed, the Haunted Mansion finally opened, becoming an instant classic with guests. With Imagineering focusing on finishing Walt Disney World, very little happened at Disneyland again until 1971. The Indian Village at the edge of Frontierland was closed in 1971 to make way for Bear Country. Also in Frontierland, Aunt Jemima's Kitchen was renamed the Revitalizing Terrace. 1972 saw the next expansion of Disneyland when Bear Country opened on March 4th. With the new land, the Country Bear Jamboree opened in Bear Country, a replica of the opening day Magic Kingdom attraction that was also one of the last projects Walt Disney oversaw. 1973 saw the closure of the pack mules in Frontierland, as the land began to see some new changes. On April 8th, the Walt Disney Story opened in the Main Street Opera House, replacing Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. Then on September 9th, the Carousel of Progress closed in Disneyland, so it could be transported to Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland in Florida. On June 29th, America Sings opened in Tomorrowland's rotating theatre to celebrate America's bicentennial the following year. The animatronic show didn't fit into Tomorrowland, but did celebrate America's music. To mark Disneyland's 20th year, the Walt Disney Story was transformed into the Walt Disney Story featuring Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln on February 12th, reviving the Lincoln animatronic show. Several versions of the show would exist throughout the rest of the park's history, with alternating pre-show exhibits. Since man had walked on the moon in 1969, the outdated Flight to the Moon was replaced by Mission to Mars in Tomorrowland on March 21st. As there were no openings or closures in 1976, we skip ahead to January 2nd, 1977, when Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland closed in Frontierland. As part of a push to add more thrill rides to Disneyland, Space Mountain opened in Tomorrowland on May 27th. Similar to Magic Kingdom's, but this time with only enough space for one track, but 2 guests per row. We jump forward to 1979, When the replacement to Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland opened, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, a roller coaster through abandoned mines and caverns. With the construction of Epcot in Tokyo Disneyland in the 1980s, Disneyland's major project was an update to Fantasyland, beginning with the closure of a Mickey Mouse Club Theatre in 1981. In 1982, Fantasyland closed to make way for its transformation, including the removal of Captain Hook's galley and the repositioning of Dumbo and the teacups. Over in Frontierland, Casa de Fritos became Casa Mexicana. On May 23, 1983, New Fantasyland officially opened, with several attractions repositioned for better guest flow and a new entrance connecting Fantasyland to Frontierland. As part of New Fantasyland, Pinocchio's Daring Journey opened in the former location of a Mickey Mouse Club Theatre, taking its place amongst the Dark Ride lineup. Moving into Tomorrowland in 1984, the Magic Eye Theatre opened on June 16th, showing Magic Journeys, a 3D film that was currently shown in Epcot. In 1985, Disneyland celebrated its 30th anniversary by opening the Videopolis Theatre in Fantasyland on June 22nd, a theatre by day and a nightclub by night. Then on September 2nd, 1985, the now outdated Adventure Through Inner Space closed in Tomorrowland. In June 1986, Big Thunder Ranch opened along the path between Frontierland and Fantasyland. Over in Tomorrowland, Magic Journeys closed in July to be replaced by Captain EO on September 18th. On January 9th, 1987, Star Tours opened in Tomorrowland, a simulator attraction taking guests on a journey through the Star Wars universe. Due to the expected popularity of the ride, Disneyland remained open for 60 hours straight, so every guest that wanted to ride was able to. In 1988, America Sings closed in Tomorrowland on April 10th, as America's Bicentennial had ended 13 years ago. On July 30th, Bear Country was officially renamed Critter Country, in preparation for the opening of Splash Mountain. Outside of the park, Disney managed to acquire the Disneyland Hotel on January 22nd, 1988. 1989 saw a lot of changes beginning on January 20th, when Sunkissed I Presume closed in Adventureland, followed by the closure of Sunkissed Citrus House on June 3rd. In July, the Harbour Galley opened as part of Critter Country, alongside Splash Mountain, which opened on July 17th, a log flume that used the old America Sings animatronics to tell the story of Brer Rabbit. Finally, on December 16th, One Man's Dream debuted at the Videopolis Theatre. On April 6, 1990, the Blue Ribbon Bakery opened on Main Street, USA. Over in Adventureland, Bengal Barbecue opened on June 4th. At the Videopolis Theatre, One Man's Dream closed in April, and it was replaced by Dick Tracy starring in Diamond Double Cross, which ran from June 15th to December 31st, 1990. In 1991, Disneyland opened Disney Afternoon Avenue near It's a Small World, including a Rescue Ranger retheme of Autopia, a Gummy Bear retheme of a motorboat cruise, and Plain Crazy at the Videopolis Theatre between March and September. In 1992, new shows debuted at the park. In Fantasyland, Beauty and the Beast Live on Stage debuted at the Videopolis Theatre on April 12th. The next month, on May 13th, Fantasmic debuted on the Rivers of America. Then, on November 2nd, Mission to Mars closed in Tomorrowland as part of the ever-changing plans for a new Tomorrowland. After the Gummy Bear overlay grew stale, the motorboat cruise officially closed on January 11th, 1993. Nearby on January 24th, a brand new land opened in Disneyland called Mickey's Toontown, based on Mickey Mouse and Roger Rabbit. In Adventureland, the Tahitian Terrace closed on April 17th and was replaced on July 2nd by Aladdin's Oasis. In 1994, Mickey's Toontown was completed when Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin opened on January 26, 1994. Towards the end of the year, on November 9th, the Skyway closed as part of cost-saving measures. Disneyland marked its 40th anniversary with the opening of Indiana Jones Adventure, Temple of the Forbidden Eye in Adventureland on March 4th, 1995. On April 30th, Beauty and the Beast Live on Stage ended at the Videopolis Theatre, being replaced on June 23rd by the Spirit of Pocahontas at the newly named Fantasyland Theatre. Tomorrowland saw more closures in August when the People Mover closed on August 21st and the Alpine Gardens closed on August 25th. To round out the anniversary year, Disney bought the nearby Pan Pacific Hotel on December 12th and renamed it the Disneyland Pacific Hotel. In February 1996, the Triton's Gardens opened in the former location of the Alpine Gardens, becoming an aerial meet and greet location. To make way for the new Tomorrowland, the Circle Vision 360 show American Journeys closed on July 7th. 1997 saw a lot of closures. In January 1997, several Main Street shops moved locations, including the Blue Ribbon Bakery, replacing the now closed Carnation Ice Cream Parlour, and the Gibson Go Ice Cream Parlour, opening where Blue Ribbon Bakery was. In Tomorrowland on January 6th, the Rocket Jets closed, and on April 7th, Captain EO closed at the Magic Eye Theatre. On May 17th, the Mike Fink Keelboats closed in Frontierland. Then in August, the Plaza Pavilion closed on Main Street USA, without an expected replacement. Finally, on September 4th, 1997, the Spirit of Pocahontas ended at the Fantasyland Theatre. Several years after the original announcement, New Tomorrowland officially opened on May 22nd, 1998, featuring rocket rods on the old People Mover tracks, Red's Rockets Pizza Port replacing Mission to Mars, Astro Orbiter located at the land's entrance, and Honey I Shrunk the Audience at the Magic Eye Theatre. On November 10th, Phase 1 of New Tomorrowland finished with the opening of Interventions in the old America Sings building. As part of Phase 2, the Submarine Voyage closed on September 9th, 1998, with plans to update the attraction ultimately falling through and leaving the lagoon empty. Over in Fantasyland, Animazement the musical debuted at the Fantasyland Theatre. Less happened in 1999, but the Swiss Family Treehouse closed on March 8th and reopened as Tarzan's Treehouse on June 13th, a Tarzan overlay that allowed the treehouse to continue to exist in the park. After 2 years of operation and continuous issues, the rocket rods closed for maintenance on September 25, 2000, but the closure would become indefinite, with rocket rods confirmed closed in April 2001. Outside the park, the Pan Pacific Hotel was renamed the Pacific Pier Hotel on December 15th, to tie it into the new park being built on Disneyland's old parking lot. In Disneyland in 2001, Casa Mexicana became Rancho del Zocalo on February 6th. On September 9th, the Country Bear Jamboree closed in Critter Country, and on October 7th, the Sleeping Beauty Castle walkthrough closed. At the Fantasyland Theatre, Animazement closed on October 21st, 2001. Across the new Esplanade, Disney's California Adventure opened on February 8th, 2001, featuring 3 lands: Hollywood Pictures Backlot, Golden State, and Paradise Pier. On September 14th, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Play It opened in the Hollywood Backlot to add capacity to the park, while Steps in Time at the Hyperion Theatre closed on October 14th and was replaced by the Power of Blast on November 22nd. Outside of the parks, the Grand California Hotel and Spa opened on January 2nd with a private entrance to DCA, and Downtown Disney opened on January 12th, a shopping and dining district between the two parks. At Disneyland in 2002, Mickey's Detective School debuted at the Fantasyland Theatre. Across the street at DCA, Superstar Limo closed on January 11th due to guest dissatisfaction with the dark ride. Despite its initial popularity, the Power of Blast closed at the Hyperion Theatre on September 2nd, and the ABC soap opera Bistro closed on November 3rd in the Hollywood Pictures Backlot. DCA's first expansion, A Bug's Land, opened on October 7th, 2002, a land featuring several attractions for small kids that previously had little to do at the new park. In 2003, Mickey's Detective School ended its run at the Fantasyland Theatre. On April 11th, the main adventures of Winnie the Pooh opened in Critter Country, in the former location of the Country Bear Jamboree. In December 2003, the Jolly Trolley closed in Mickey's Toontown. Over at DCA, Aladdin, a musical spectacular, debuted at the Hyperion Theatre on January 16, 2003, and Disney Junior Live on Stage opened on April 11th in the former location of the ABC soap opera Bistro. On February 23, 2004, Snow White, an Enchanted Musical debuted at the Fantasyland Theatre. Over in DCA, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror opened in the Hollywood Pictures backlot to great success. After being open for 3 years, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Playhit closed on August 20th, 2004. In 2005, Disneyland began celebrating its 50th anniversary, dubbed the happiest homecoming on Earth, including several ride refurbishments and the opening of Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters on March 17th in Tomorrowland. Across the Esplanade at DCA, Turtle Talk with Crush opened in the Animation Academy on July 15th. In 2006, Snow White, an Enchanted Musical ended its run at the Fantasyland Theatre, which became the Princess Fantasy Fair meet and greet location in October. On June 26, 2006, Jack Sparrow animatronics were added to Pirates of the Caribbean to tie the attraction to the successful film franchise. In Disney's California Adventure, Monsters Inc. Mike and Scully to the Rescue opened in the Hollywood Pictures backlot in the former location of Superstar Limo. On June 11, 2007, the Submarine Lagoon was filled again when Finding Nemo's Submarine Voyage opened, themed to Finding Nemo rather than Atlantis. Over in DCA in 2007, Burger Invasion closed after Disney ended its sponsorship with McDonald's. On August 17, 2008, Triton's Garden closed in Disneyland, replaced by Pixie Hollow in October 2008. In November, It's a Small World reopened after refurbishment, and several Disney characters were added to the attraction, whilst an updated Sleeping Beauty Castle walkthrough reopened on November 27th. Disney's California Adventure began to see changes due to a multi-year $1.1 billion expansion and park redesign. This began on June 17, 2008, when Toy Story Midway Mania opened in Paradise Pier. On September 7th, Golden Dreams closed, whilst the Sunwheel closed on October 14th. Located near the old motorboat cruise dock, Edelweiss Snacks opened in Disneyland on September 25, 2009. At DCA, Mickey's Fun Wheel reopened on May 4th, and the Orange Stinger closed on July 14th, 2009. On January 4th, 2010, Honey, I Shrunk the Audience closed at the Magic Eye Theatre in Tomorrowland, replaced by Captain EO on February 23rd. On July 27th, the original Star Tours closed in Tomorrowland. In DCA, Silly Symphony Swings opened on June 11th, 2010, the same day that the new nighttime spectacular World of Colour made its debut. On September 7th, Bountiful Valley Farm, the Maliboomer, and Pizza Om Mau Mau all closed, followed by the SS Rustworthy on September 10th and Mulholland Madness on October 12th. Over in the Hollywood Pictures backlot, Electronica made its debut on October 8th, 2010. At Disneyland on June 3rd, 2011, Star Tours The Adventure Continues opened in Tomorrowland. On December 23rd, the Blue Ribbon Bakery closed on Main Street, USA. Over at DCA, Mission Tortilla Factory in the Pacific Wharf closed its doors on May 31st, 2011. A few days later, on June 3rd, The Little Mermaid Ariel's Undersea Adventure opened in the former location of Golden Dreams at Paradise Pier. A month later, on July 1st, Goofy's Sky School opened, a Goofy Room theme of Mulholland Madness. The same day, Boardwalk Pizza and Pasta and Paradise Garden Grill opened. At the end of the month, on July 31st, the California Zephyr, including its bakery, ice cream shop and store, closed to make way for Sunshine Plaza's transformation into Buena Vista Street. Over at the Disneyland Hotel in May 2011, Trader Sam's Enchanted Tiki Bar opened. 2012 was a big year for the Disneyland Resort, beginning with the opening of the Jolly Holiday Bakery Cafe on January 7th in the former location of the Plaza Pavilion, and the opening of Carnation Cafe on June 13th in the former location of Blue Ribbon Bakery. In August, the Princess Fantasy Fair ended at the Fantasyland Theatre. Over at the newly named Disney California Adventure, Electronica ended at the newly named Hollywoodland. On June 7th, Ghirardelli's Soda and Fountain Shop opened in Pacific Wharf. Disney California Adventure was officially rededicated on June 15th, alongside the opening of new offerings, including Buena Vista Street and the Red Cart Trolley, Carsland and Radiator Springs races, the division of Golden State into separate mini-lands, and the debut of a Mad Tea Party in Hollywoodland. Whilst 2012 was DCA's year, 2013 was Disneyland's, beginning with the opening of Fantasy Fair and Princess Fairy Tale Hall on March 12, 2013. Over at the Fantasyland Theatre, Mickey and the Magical Map debuted on May 25th. Not a lot happened in Disneyland in 2014, other than the closure of Captain EO at the Magic Eye Theatre. At DCA, Condor Flats officially closed on January 7th, as that area of the park began to be refreshed. Over in Hollywoodland, Muppet Vision 3D closed at the Sunset Seasons Theatre on November 1st. In Downtown Disney, Starbucks opened on March 10th as part of Disney's new partnership with the coffee chain. In 2015, Disneyland's Tomorrowland received another minor upgrade for its 60th anniversary, beginning with the closure of the Starcade. On March 13th, Innoventions closed, reopening as Star Wars Launch Bay on November 16th, to coincide with the release of Star Wars The Force Awakens that year. The same day, Star Wars Path of the Jedi opened at the newly named Tomorrowland Theatre, and the Tomorrowland Terrace was renamed Galactic Grill. Over at DCA, for the first time in forever, a Frozen Sing-Along celebration opened at the Sunset Showcase Theatre on January 7th, 2015. On February 16th, Luigi's Flying Tires closed in Carsland due to performance issues. On the other side of the park, Smoke Jumper's Grill replaced Taste Pilot's Grill on March 20th, before Condor Flats reopened as Grizzly Peak Airfield, a section of Grizzly Peak, on May 15, 2015. In order to make way for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, the Disneyland Railroad temporarily closed and Big Thunder Ranch permanently closed on January 10, 2016. At Disney's California Adventure, Aladdin a Musical Spectacular ended its run at the Hyperion Theatre on January 10th as well. On March 7th, Luigi's Rollickin' Roasters opened in Carsland to replace Luigi's Flying Tires. In Hollywoodland, on March 30th, the Mad Tea Party ended its run, whilst for the first time in forever, a Frozen Sing-Along closed at the Sunset Showcase Theatre on April 17th. This was so Frozen Live at the Hyperion could make its debut on May 27th. Finally, on June 17th, 2016, Soarin' Around the World replaced Soarin'. Over at Downtown Disney, the Westside Starbucks opened in 2016. On February 24, 2017, Pinocchio's Village House restaurant received a temporary overlay of the Red Rose Tavern to promote the live-action Beauty and the Beast, which became a permanent overlay. In Adventureland on June 12th, the Indiana Jones Adventure Outpost was closed and became indoor seating for Bengal barbecue. A month later, on July 29th, the Disneyland Railroad and an updated Rivers of America reopened. Across the Esplanade at DCA, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror closed on January 3rd before reopening as Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout on May 27th, 2017. As part of Pixar Fest in 2018, Red Rocket's pizza port was temporarily converted into Alien Pizza Planet, although it became a permanent change. On May 16th, Aladdin's Oasis closed in Adventureland, reopening as the Tropical Hideaway on December 21st. On January 8th, 2018, at DCA, Paradise Pier closed for its transformation into Pixar Pier, including the closure of California Screaming, Mickey's Fun Wheel, and Ariel's Grotto Restaurant, and later King Triton's Carousel of the Sea on March 5th. Pixar Pier would open on June 23rd with the Incredicoaster, Pixar Palaround, and Lamplight Lounge. The same day, Paradise Pier was officially split into Paradise Gardens Park and Pixar Pier. To make way for Avengers Campus, It's Tough to Be a Bug closed at DCA on March 19th, whilst the Bugs Land closed on September 4th, 2018. Downtown Disney saw a lot of changes in 2018, beginning with the Void opening on January 5th. In June, a new hotel was announced for the west of Downtown Disney, leading to the closure of Rainforest Cafe on June 18th, and Starbucks, ESPN Zone, and AMC Theatres, and Earl of Sandwich on June 30th. However, the hotel was cancelled due to a disagreement between Disney and the Anaheim Council, leading to Earl of Sandwich reopening in October, and the Westside Starbucks opening on December 10th. Additionally, Salt and Straw opened at Downtown Disney on October 11th. In 2019, Disneyland's biggest expansion opened when Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opened on April 26, 2019, although the land only opened with Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. Over at DCA, Pixar Pier was completed when Jesse's Critter Carousel opened on April 5th, and the Inside Out Emotional Whirlwind opened on June 28th, repurposing the old Flix Flyers ride mechanism. Over in Hollywoodland, Mickey's PhilharMagic opened at the Sunset Showcase Theatre on April 26th. On January 6, 2020, Snow White's Scary Adventures closed in Disneyland as part of a major refurbishment. The same month, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance opened in Galaxy's Edge, finally completing the land. On March 12, 2020, Disneyland Resort temporarily closed for the COVID-19 pandemic, causing the permanent closure of Mickey and the Magical Map at the Fantasyland Theatre, Chip 'n Dale Treehouse, and Frozen Live at the Hyperion. On July 3rd, it was announced that the Void would not be reopening when Downtown Disney reopened on July 9, 2020. However, Disneyland would remain closed for the rest of 2020. On April 30th, 2021, Disneyland and Disney California Adventure reopened following the pandemic. The same day, Snow White's Enchanted Wish opened in Disneyland. On July 16th, the Jungle Cruise reopened with brand new show scenes designed to be more inclusive. Staying in Adventureland, Tarzan's Treehouse closed on September 3rd, 2021. Over at DCA, Avengers Campus opened on June 4th, 2021, after initial plans to open in 2020, featuring a new attraction, Web Slingers. On March 9th, 2022, Mickey's Toontown temporarily closed so the land could receive a major refurbishment. Then on May 28th, Tale of the Lion King made its debut at the Fantasyland Theatre in Disneyland. At Downtown Disney, the West Side officially closed to make way for a major renovation. As the Walt Disney Company planned to celebrate its 100th anniversary, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway opened in Mickey's Toontown on January 27, 2023. The rest of Mickey's Toontown reopened on March 19th, with several new play areas and places to relax. In New Orleans Square, the French Market restaurant closed on February 16th, reopening on September 7, 2023 as Tiana's Palace. Next door on May 31st, Splash Mountain closed at Disneyland. Finally, in Disneyland, the Adventureland Treehouse opened on November 10th, 2023. Over at DCA, between June 30th and August 31st, Rogers the Musical ran at the Hyperion Theatre. On August 31st, the Pacific Wharf officially became San Francisco Square. The update to Downtown Disney continued with the closure of La Brea Bakery on January 9th, with Earl of Sandwich moving into its space temporarily. On April 10th, Uwe Bar and Cafe and Catal closed. Then on November 10th, the Downtown Disney stage and lawn opened, the first part of the newly refurbished Downtown Disney. Over at the Disneyland Hotel, a new DVC tower opened on September 28, 2023. On January 7, 2024, Tale of the Lion King ended its run at the Fantasyland Theatre. Over in Critter Country on July 8, 2024, the Hungry Bear restaurant closed as part of the land's transformation, reopening on October 25th as Hungry Bear Barbecue Jamboree. With the opening of Tiana's Bayou Adventure on November 15th, Critter Country was also renamed Bayou Country, matching the new theme of Tiana's. Over at DCA, Doctor Strange Mysteries of the Mystic Arts closed in Avengers Campus on June 30th. Outside of the parks, Disney's Paradise Pier Hotel reopened as the Pixar Place Hotel on January 30th, 2024. Over at Downtown Disney, Tortilla Joe's closed on March 31st, whilst Paseo, Centrico and T&Dita opened on May 2nd. A few months later on July 1st, Din Tai Fung opened at the west side of Downtown Disney. In 2025, to mark Disneyland's 70th anniversary, Walt Disney A Magical Life made its debut on Main Street, USA on July 17th, in rotation with great moments with Mr. Lincoln. Over at DCA, the red car trolley closed on February 8th, as construction began on 2 new attractions for Avengers Campus. The nearby Disney Junior Dance Party closed on March 24th, 2025, so Disney Junior Mickey Mouse Live could debut on May 16th for the 70th anniversary. Parkside Market opened on January 4th, 2025, whilst the rest of the Downtown Disney refurbishments is set to be completed by the end of the year, with the opening of Porto's Bakery, Earl of Sandwich, Arthur & Sons Steakhouse, and Pearl's Roadside Barbecue. Looking towards the future of the Disneyland Resort, we know that on May 22nd, 2026, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run is going to receive a new mission themed to the Mandalorian and Grogu, the new movie coming out the same year. Beyond that, at an unspecified date, Disney California Adventure is set to receive 4 new attractions. Construction has already begun on a massive expansion to Avengers Campus, featuring 2 new attractions, the Flat Ride Stark Flight Lab and the immersive dark ride Avengers Infinity Defense, taking guests through the multiverse. In 2026, construction will begin on a new Coco boat ride, likely being built behind Pixar Pier. Finally, an Avatar-themed land will be added to the park, featuring a large boat ride themed to Avatar: The Way of Water, leading to the closure of Monsters Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue in 2026. And with the Disneyland Forward project being approved in 2024, the Disneyland Resort has even more room to expand. So, that was a recap of Disneyland's history. From a small theme park amongst orange groves to a resort with 3 hotels and 2 theme parks, Disneyland has grown over 70 years and continues to do so. So what was your favourite decade of Disneyland's past? And what do you hope to see in the future? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment down below on what you want to see next on the Distory channel.